Hey guys, I'm E, and here's the thing. I'm gonna paint a picture, and you guys let me know in the comments if it feels familiar. You've got this big game coming up, or this big sporting event that you plan to do an amazing video about. You've got ideas, you already sort of know what it's gonna look like. It's gonna be your greatest video yet. And you get there, you film, everything goes well, or at least according to plan. Then you go back home, you ingest all your footage in your computer, and then you look at it, you see the amount of footage that you have to go through, you realize the size of the project that you're about to take on, and then it sinks in, it hits you like a ton of bricks, you're overwhelmed with panic and discouragement, just realizing how long this is gonna take you and how difficult it's gonna be. And you end up doing a half-assed job that's nowhere near as good as what you originally intended. Sounds familiar? Well, if it does, you're in luck. Because in this video, I'm gonna show you how to attack big editing projects. So that one, you stay motivated the whole way through, and two, you end up with the amazing video that you originally wanted. Okay, so first of all, the idea for this video came to me because if you don't already know, I do manage a Facebook group called Sports Videography Community. Probably if you're watching this, there's a good chance you're a part of that group. If you're not, then you should. Within the group, I give advice, I give feedback. You know, if people have questions or they share their videos and they want criticism or feedback or whatever, I'm happy to do so. But there's also a bunch of other videographers that do the same. And for that, I thank you guys, by the way. But what I did notice is that a lot of the times people will comment on other members' videos and say, oh, you should do this, you should do that. And all these comments are true. They're very, very true. And I agree with everything they say. But then the same people go and share their own videos. And then I see the same mistakes in their videos that they were telling other people not to do. And to me, well, you know, obviously I'm exactly the same, and we all are. It's human nature. Like, it's a lot easier to critique other people than to critique our own work. But I was asking myself, like, why, how do we get there? And I think that the main reason is the reason for this video, which is we end up with all this footage with this amazing idea, and we're like, oh, this is gonna take so long, this is gonna be so difficult, and we get a bit discouraged, and we end up with a half-assed job thinking, oh, I'll get him next time. You know, I know this video is not exactly what I wanted it to be, it's not exactly what it could be, but I'm tired, so this is it, and next time I'll do the video that I actually want to do. And then next time, same thing happens, and the actual video that we want never comes. So today, we're doing this video. I'm gonna show you guys how to make sure that you keep through and you do it and you get to that point where you finish your video and you're 100% happy with it and 100% convinced that this is what you wanted to do from the get-go. So anyway, without further ado, let's go. There's many ways to make a big editing project as easy, as painless, and as effective as possible. The first way to do that happens even before you get into the edit. It's called shooting to edit. What it means really is just don't overshoot. The best way to do it is to have a shot list. I've touched on shot lists before in a previous video that I'm sure is either showing up somewhere in the frame as a link, or I'll put in the description below anyway. But yeah, the idea is that once you've got a shot list, you know exactly what you need in terms of footage for your edit. So you go filming with a purpose. You're filming exactly the shots that you do need. You're not filming all this extra stuff that you won't need. So when you get into the edit, there's a lot less to go through, and it makes it a lot easier for you to get the job done. Obviously, the context of this video is more about what happens if you do have a shitload of footage to go through. So ideally, you make a shot list. But if you don't, and you end up with a lot of footage that you need to go through, then the first thing I would do is what I call an editing plan, which is basically either a storyboard on paper or something that you can actually do in your editing software. especially if you're like me and you're using Premiere Pro. This is something I should have mentioned from the beginning. I edit on Premiere Pro, so all the B-roll that you're gonna see is from Premiere. I hope for you guys that everything I do in Premiere can be done in other softwares. I'm pretty sure it can, because I'm gonna be showing a lot of very basic stuff. So yeah, this is what I'm working with, so this is what I'm using in this video. Anyway, like I was saying, a storyboard on paper is basically the editing version of a shot list, which you could do before you even go filming as well. It's basically a description of each scene that you're gonna be using within your video. I myself, I'm not big on using paper, not because I'm trying to save trees necessarily, but just because I'm in my editing software, this is my world, and I'm trying to do as much as I can within that. So what I do is that I want as quickly as possible to get an idea of what my sequence will look like in terms of structure. And I do that with music. For me, editing has a lot to do with music, especially in sports, because it's all about rhythm, it's all about intensity, passion, the feelings, and all these things come a lot from the music track that you pick. So for example, if I'm working on a basketball game, first part of my video will probably be some type of intro. So I'll lay down the music that I picked for that. I'll edit it to the duration that I'm happy with. And then I'll use the text tool and just have like a placeholder on top of that music saying intro. So after that, maybe I have a bit of action, a few highlights from that game. So if that's the case, there'll be another music track and another placeholder saying game action or something like that. Maybe at some point I've got an interview from the coach. So in that case, I will use the actual interview. I'll lay it down in its own sequence. I'll chop it up to the bits that I like, put them in my real sequence. It's not edited properly. It's probably gonna end up a bit shorter, but roughly that's how long the interview is gonna be. So I'll put it in my sequence, put a placeholder on top of it as well, and so on. At this point, you see where I'm going with this. Each section has a description above it that will eventually be replaced with footage. So that way I get sort of an overview of my sequence. I get an overview of the structure of my timeline, and then by just sort of listening to what's going on, I can tell if it's gonna be a bit too long, if it needs a bit more punch in the middle, if it needs to go down so that it can go back up, those sort of things. Speaking of placeholders, the one thing I've noticed is that a lot of people edit in a way where what they put on the timeline is there for life. They set a 2-second clip, and that 2-second clip is gonna be there till the end. And then the next one and the next one and the next one, they don't really revisit and change things up. They just sort of build chronologically, and when they reach the end, video's over. I personally don't do it like that. I go in sections, I go back, change things, whatever. That's why it's called editing. But mainly what I'm trying to get at is that sometimes when there is a part that you're struggling with, that you don't have any ideas for it, you don't know what to do, just skip it. Put a placeholder there saying this is roughly what I want to do, or in the meantime, just put something there and then move on. Do something else, something that you do have an idea for, something that you are motivated to work on right now, and just get back to that part later. Or if there's a clip that you filmed and you're looking for it and you can't find it, but it exists because you filmed it, don't worry about it. Put another clip in the meantime, or put a placeholder and just label it with a different color or something that it's obvious that it's not going to be there forever, and just move on. And then eventually, while you're looking for something else, you will find that clip and then you'll put it back where it belongs. Okay, so let's address the elephant in the room, which is motivation or lack thereof. Obviously, this is what's gonna make or break your video in terms of seeing the project through. So one very easy and basic way to stay motivated is to drink water and eat when you're hungry. Sounds pretty basic, I know, but when you're dehydrated or hungry, that's when you start being irritated and annoyed by little things, and that's when you give up on applying yourself. Another way to stay motivated is to not look at the big picture all the time. So I do that by breaking up my sequence into smaller sequences and just work on each of them one at a time. So all these sections that I created earlier, the intro, the interview, all these other ones, you basically take them one at a time and just focus on that one. So if I'm starting with the intro, I open that small sequence of like 60, 45 seconds, whatever, and I just focus on that and work on that. When I'm done with the intro and I want to move on to the interview, then I just open the interview sequence and work on that and that alone. That way it's a lot easier to see the light at the end of the tunnel. There's all these little goals that you're achieving along the way, and next thing you know, you put them all together and your main sequence is done. Another tip I have for you guys, which is really the first one I should have started with, because this is the first thing you should do once you get into your editing software, is that you should organize your footage properly. We all have our own sort of way of doing this. What I do is a lot of bins, a lot of different bins, and I identify the bins. A lot of people like to identify each clip, which is definitely a great way to do things. Personally, I just feel like it takes me a lot of time, especially if you got like a lot of clips. It's a lot of time like identifying clips. I'd rather put them in a thumbnail sort of format where I can see them, therefore I don't need to read. I just, oh yeah, that's the clip, I move on. So what I do is I identify the bins though. So for example, if it's a basketball game, I might go by quarter. So like quarter 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 4 different bins. Within each bins, there'll be like action shots, like game shots. There'll be crowd shots. There might be, you know, referee or whatever, like miscellaneous, where all this other stuff happens. So for each quarter, I know exactly, like I've got my action, I've got my crowd shots, I've got all these other things. So it's easy to go and get what I need. And when I want to look at what's inside each bin, I'll make sure that this is a different tab where it's all in thumbnail format, so I can look at it, see what's what, and quickly find the shots that I need, put them on the timeline, and just progress like that as quickly as possible. And my last piece of advice for you guys is to not try to do everything all at once. There's steps. So when I'm working on content, building up my sequence, that's all I'm doing. Once I'm done with that, then I move on to do color correction. Look at all my clips, make sure they all have the same level, the same colors and everything. Once that's done, then I move on to audio mix, audio design, all that stuff. Also, do me a favor, if you can afford it, if you have the time, don't export on the same day that you edited most of your work. Sleep on it if you can, then come back the next day, rewatch it, make a few adjustments, and then you can export. So on that note, thanks for watching. I hope you learned a thing or two. Don't forget to join our Facebook group. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next video. Peace.